Remember when the cookbook came out before the clock, not after it? For a lot of American families, there was a thick old paperback in the kitchen drawer, the kind held together with a rubber band and stained with bacon grease and vanilla extract, and that was the only cooking guide anyone needed. Pull it out, flip to the dog-eared page, and have something warm on the table in under 10 minutes. Somewhere along the way, we traded those fast, honest recipes for complicated ones that take an hour and call for ingredients nobody can spell. But those old, quick meals, the ones that smelled like your grandmother's kitchen on a Tuesday night, they're still worth making. Every single recipe on this list came straight from cookbooks like those, the kind you stumble across at church sales and estate boxes, and every one of them takes 10 minutes or less. So grab a seat and subscribe, because here are 60 forgotten 10-minute recipes pulled right from the old cookbooks. Number 17. Cornbread in buttermilk. You crumbled leftover cornbread into a tall glass, poured cold buttermilk over it, and ate it with a spoon. In the South, this was not strange. This was supper. Farmers ate it after a day in the field. Grandmothers ate it before bed. Seniors living alone ate it whenever the kitchen felt too hot to turn on the stove. The cornbread was already made. The buttermilk was already cold. The whole thing came together in less than a minute, and the tartness of the buttermilk against the crumbly sweetness of the cornbread was a flavor that tasted like every back porch in the rural South from the 1930s through the 1970s. A box of cornmeal cost 39 cents in 1975. Buttermilk was 45 cents a quart. A single batch of cornbread made in a cast iron skillet could feed a person for 3 or 4 days, and the buttermilk kept it from going dry. Your grandfather did not need a recipe for this. He needed a glass. Number 17. Grilled cheese and tomato soup. The pairing was stitched into American memory by the Great Depression and finished by World War II. School cafeterias used to serve it as a complete protein, cheese for the fat, tomato soup for the vitamin C. In 1979, a can of Campbell's cost 23 cents. 2 slices of sunbeam bread, 1 slice of American cheese, a pat of butter in the skillet. 7 minutes total. Frank buttered the outside of the bread, not the inside. You only had to make it wrong once to learn that. He ladled the soup into a coffee mug because a mug kept the soup hotter than a bowl, and because Rose's bowls sat in a box in the basement and he had not taken them out since the funeral. The mug was fine. The soup did not know the difference. Number 16. Oatmeal with brown sugar. A canister of old-fashioned oats cost $3.49 in 2024 and contained 30 servings. That was 12 cents a bowl. You measured half a cup of oats, added water, microwaved it for 90 seconds, and stirred in a spoonful of brown sugar. 5 grams of protein, 4 grams of fiber. A warm bowl that felt like morning even when you ate it at 7 in the evening. The Quaker Oats Company began marketing oatmeal as a health food in the 1980s, but Depression-era families had been eating it for survival long before anyone cared about cholesterol. For a senior living alone, oatmeal served a double purpose. It was breakfast when you ate it in the morning, and it was comfort when you ate it at night. The warmth of the bowl in your hands on a cold evening in February mattered as much as the nutrition inside it. Meals on Wheels programs across the country reported that oatmeal was the #1 food item that recipients already had in their homes before the first delivery arrived. It preceded the help. The first frost came fast in the mountains and killed whatever was still green overnight. Fried green tomatoes were what you made the week before. Every tomato that hadn't ripened, sliced thick, dredged through cornmeal with salt and pepper, and laid into a skillet of hot bacon grease until the outside went golden and crackled and the inside softened just enough to give. They weren't the romanticized version that arrived in restaurants decades later. They were a practical harvest, a way of eating what would otherwise rot on the vine. The cornmeal crust transformed the chalky bitterness of an unripe tomato into something with texture and heat, and enough fat to feel like a meal. Mountain families in North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee had done this since the 19th century, using cornmeal ground at the nearest mill. You never added anything fancy to the dredge. The grease had to be hot enough that the slice sizzled the second it touched the pan. If it didn't, you'd waited too long. If you had to ask how hot the grease was, you weren't ready to cook them. Braunschweiger on crackers was the lunch that lived in every Midwestern refrigerator for 40 years and then quietly disappeared. The German liverwurst, smooth, spreadable, dark as wet clay, came wrapped in a plastic casing you peeled back like a banana. You spread it on Ritz or saltines with a butter knife, maybe added a thin slice of onion or a line of yellow mustard. And that was lunch. In the 20s and 30s, when German immigrant communities still dominated whole neighborhoods in Milwaukee, Cincinnati, and St. Louis, Braunschweiger was as common as peanut butter. It was cheap protein that kept for weeks in the icebox. Kids carried it in lunchboxes next to an apple and never thought twice. When fresh deli meats became affordable in the 60s, the spread lost its place. The taste was too strong, too particular, too tied to a generation that was already getting old. If you can still find it in the supermarket, it's usually on the bottom shelf, where the things nobody buys anymore go to wait. Streak-a-lean biscuit was Appalachian breakfast perfection, featuring that thin-cut salt-cured pork that sat somewhere between bacon and fatback. The meat was sliced from the pig's belly, carrying streaks of lean meat through the fat that gave it both name and character. Fried quickly in a hot skillet, streak-a-lean rendered its fat while the lean portions crisped and curled at the edges. Tucked into a split biscuit with maybe a smear of butter or apple butter, this sandwich delivered salty, smoky satisfaction that powered hours of farm labor. The meat cost less than proper bacon but carried more flavor than plain fatback. Families cured their own streak-o-lean in smokehouses each fall, ensuring a supply of breakfast meat that lasted through winter and into spring. This sandwich represented the kind of self-sufficiency that defined mountain life, where families raised and preserved their own food. Pickled watermelon rind appeared in cut glass dishes at Southern Christmas tables, a sweet tart condiment that grandmothers put up in summer, but could also make quickly from store-bought jars enhanced with extra spices. Those who bought prepared rinds would simmer them briefly with additional cinnamon sticks, whole cloves, and a splash of vinegar to make them taste homemade. The translucent pale green pieces glistened like jewels, their texture crisp tender, and their flavor an unexpected combination of sweetness and pickle tang. Grandmothers served them alongside ham and turkey as a palate cleanser, their brightness cutting through rich meats and heavy gravies. The rinds connected Christmas tables to summer gardens and the waste-nothing philosophy that defined earlier generations. Even families who hadn't grown their own watermelons appreciated this old-fashioned condiment that seemed fancy but cost very little. Pickled watermelon rind proved that resourcefulness and flavor could coexist beautifully on holiday tables. Hot cereal with butter transformed humble oatmeal or cream of wheat into something almost luxurious on cold evenings. Seniors who grew up during the Depression understood that hot cereal stretched further than almost any other food, filling stomachs for pennies per serving. The cereal was cooked according to package directions, usually with water when milk needed stretching, then transferred to a bowl where a generous pat of butter was added along with salt rather than sugar. The butter melted into golden pools on the surface, adding richness that made plain grain taste almost decadent. Some seniors stirred everything together while others let the butter remain in patches, each spoonful offering different proportions of creamy and plain. This savory preparation was common among those who preferred evening meals without sweetness. Hot cereal with butter represented economy and comfort combined, asking almost nothing of the cook while delivering warmth on evenings when loneliness felt sharpest. Cucumber and mint cream cheese boats offered a cool escape from the summer heat. Large cucumbers were halved lengthwise and carefully scooped to form shallow boats ready to cradle a refreshing filling. Cream cheese was whipped until soft, then mixed with finely chopped fresh mint, a splash of lemon juice, and a pinch of salt. The smooth mixture was spooned into the cucumber shells and chilled until firm enough to slice into neat sections. Each bite combined the crisp snap of the cucumber with the creamy tang of the cheese and the bright fragrance of mint. These boats added a burst of green color to long tables covered with pies and fried meats, and they stood out as a light option amid the heavier fare. Children liked the fun shape, while adults savored the cooling freshness on a hot afternoon of music and fellowship. They embodied the ingenuity of picnic cooks who used garden produce and simple dairy to create a dish that felt elegant yet entirely homemade. Baked apples with cinnamon sugar were the heartwarming dessert that proved simplicity never went out of style, a 10-minute wonder that felt like hours of care. Core the apples, fill the hollow with brown sugar, cinnamon, and a pat of butter, then bake until the skin turned glossy and the filling bubbled over like molten caramel. The scent filled every corner of the house, sweet, spiced, and soft, like the comfort of wool blankets and laughter at the table. The apples collapsed slightly, their texture turning tender but not mushy, the syrup pooling at the bottom of the dish. The joy of cooking listed it among quick sweets, meant for nights when time was short, but the craving for kindness lingered. Served warm with cream, whipped topping, or ice cream, it felt indulgent without excess. Each bite carried the warmth of memory, the flavor of home, and the calm of something perfectly ordinary done perfectly well. Chocolate-covered pretzels turned salty snacks into Christmas confections within minutes, the sweet-salty combination creating addictive treats that disappeared as fast as they were made. Chocolate melted while pretzel rods or twists waited on trays, then each pretzel was dipped halfway and set to harden. Some bakers rolled the wet chocolate in crushed candy canes, nuts, or colored sprinkles, creating decorated treats that looked bakery-bought. Within 10 minutes, dozens of pretzels stood ready, their chocolate coatings glossy and firm. During the 1950s, these appeared at school parties and neighborhood exchanges. The chocolate-salt contrast was irresistible, each bite delivering both satisfaction and craving for another. Men particularly loved these, appreciating the masculine edge of pretzels, elevated by chocolate sweetness. What made chocolate pretzels endure was simplicity meeting sophistication, proving Christmas treats could be both easy and impressive. Tomato and cottage cheese plate was a dish that reflected both thrift and the diet trends of the mid-20th century. Cookbooks often included it in sections on light suppers or summer meals because it was inexpensive, quick, and required no cooking at all. The recipe was straightforward: thick slices of ripe tomato arranged neatly on a plate and topped with a scoop of cottage cheese, sometimes sprinkled with pepper or paprika for color. It looked wholesome, tasted refreshing, and was considered fashionable during years when calorie-conscious meals were gaining attention. Families who grew tomatoes in their gardens could put together the dish in under 10 minutes, making it both practical and nutritious. Cottage cheese was prized for its protein, and when paired with tomatoes, it made a plate that satisfied without feeling heavy. Though simple, it often appeared at luncheons and gatherings because its bright colors gave it visual appeal. It was the kind of dish that proved old cookbooks valued simplicity just as much as ingenuity. Tuna salad stuffed tomatoes were a colorful and nutritious 10-minute recipe featuring halved tomatoes filled with a quick tuna salad mixture, perfect for lunches or light dinners. The tuna salad was typically made by combining canned tuna with mayonnaise, chopped celery, onions, and seasonings, then spooned into hollowed tomato halves for a visually appealing presentation. This dish offered a refreshing balance of creamy, tangy tuna salad with the juicy, slightly acidic tomato, making it a satisfying yet light meal option. Popular in 1960s America, tuna salad stuffed tomatoes embodied the trend of combining convenience foods with fresh produce for speedy preparation. Served chilled, they were often enjoyed at picnics, buffets, or simple home meals. While less common today, this recipe remains a charming example of mid-century quick dishes that balanced taste, nutrition, and ease. Tomato aspic salad was a staple of mid-century dinner tables, known for its eye-catching molded presentation and refreshing flavor. This retro dish featured a clear gelatin base that held vibrant slices of fresh tomatoes and often included other vegetables or herbs for added texture and color. It was prized for how quickly it could be assembled, usually requiring just a few simple ingredients and some time to chill. The aspic's firm yet delicate texture made it a contrast to typical leafy salads, offering a unique way to serve vegetables during gatherings or holiday meals. It fit perfectly into the era's fascination with molded foods, where gelatin was used to showcase ingredients in an elegant form. Despite its simplicity, the tomato aspic salad brought sophistication to the table and was often served as a first course or side dish. Its popularity reflected a desire for visually appealing, easy-to-make dishes that required minimal cooking effort. The salad's refreshing qualities made it especially welcome during warmer months, offering a light and cool complement to heartier fare. Tomato aspic remains a nostalgic example of vintage American culinary creativity. Beef and onion sandwich spread proved that deli leftovers could turn into a hearty supper in almost no time. Thin slices of roast beef, whether from a weekend dinner or the grocery counter, were chopped fine and folded into a bowl of mayonnaise and diced onions. A splash of Worcestershire sauce and a pinch of black pepper added depth, while the onions provided crunch and a sharp bite. The mixture chilled for just a few minutes while bread toasted and plates were set. Then it was piled thick between slices of rye or soft white sandwich bread. Some families liked a layer of crisp lettuce for freshness, while others spooned the spread onto crackers for an easy snack that still felt like a meal. It stretched a small amount of beef into several servings, saving both time and money while still tasting indulgent. Each bite combined creamy texture with savory meat and a gentle onion heat, the kind of simple pleasure that keeps everyone coming back for seconds. Quick to make, rich to eat, this spread turned odds and ends into a dinner worth remembering, proving that thrift and flavor can happily share the same table. Number 18. Mayonnaise sandwich. 2 slices of white bread with a thick layer of mayonnaise. Nothing else. If you grew up with money, this sounds like a joke. If you grew up without it, this sounds like Tuesday. During the Depression, mayonnaise sandwiches were the lunch that children carried to school when there was nothing else in the house. The bread provided bulk. The mayonnaise provided fat and flavor. The whole thing cost almost nothing and could be assembled in the time it took to open the jar. By the 1970s and 1980s, seniors who had grown up eating these never stopped. A retired seamstress in Baltimore ate a mayonnaise sandwich for lunch almost every day. She added a thin slice of onion when she had one. She said the onion made it fancy. A jar of store-brand mayonnaise cost 79 cents and lasted weeks. 2 slices of bread cost a few pennies. This was a snack that poverty invented and habit preserved. Number 14. Pan-fried pierogi and onion. The Hill District had a Polish corner for 80 years. On Webster Avenue, old women rolled dough every Wednesday afternoon in the basement of St. Stanislaus Parish and sold them for 50 cents a dozen, frozen, in brown paper bags. Frank bought 2 dozen at a time and kept them in the icebox. A tablespoon of butter, half an onion sliced paper thin. Brown the onions first. Drop 6 frozen pierogi in, lid on, 5 minutes. Flip, 5 more. The potato and cheese filling went hot without the dough falling apart, the way it did if you boiled them. Sour cream on top. He ate them at the table, not the counter. On the one night of the week, he used a plate and a cloth napkin. Wednesday, because that was the day the old women made them, and a man could mark a week by the smell of butter and onion if he had nothing else left to mark it by. The dozen cost him 50 cents, which came out to about 4 cents per pierogi, cheaper than a candy bar at the Rite Aid on 5th Avenue. The foreman at the mill had once told Frank that food eaten on a cloth napkin tasted better than food eaten on paper. Frank had laughed at the time. 30 years later, alone in a row house kitchen on a Wednesday night, he understood what the old foreman had meant. The napkin was not about the food. It was about the small act of setting a place for yourself and keeping it set. Number 22. Fried egg sandwich. 2 eggs, 2 slices of bread, a pat of butter. Total cost in 2024, 63 cents. You melted the butter in a skillet, cracked the eggs, waited 3 minutes, put them between the bread, and sat down. That was it. The Depression generation ate fried egg sandwiches the way modern Americans eat fast food, quickly, cheaply, without thinking. But the nutritional math was different. 2 eggs had 12 grams of protein, B12, and choline, a nutrient that most seniors were deficient in and that doctors now link to memory and brain function. Diners across America sold fried egg sandwiches for 35 cents in the 1970s. By the 1990s, they had mostly disappeared from menus. But in kitchens where money was tight and time was short, the fried egg sandwich never went anywhere. Edna Kowalski, a retired seamstress in Toledo, Ohio, made one every morning and every evening for 19 years. She called it her bookend meal. The day started and ended the same way. That rhythm mattered to her more than the food itself. Red-eye gravy required exactly two things: country ham and black coffee, the stronger the better. You fried the ham, pulled it out, poured a cup of dark coffee over the hot drippings, and scraped the browned bits loose as it hissed. 3 minutes. Done. Some people in Appalachia called it red sop, and the name came from the reddish ring the coffee and fat left at the skillet's edge, darker on the outside, lighter in the center, like an eye. Country ham had been a staple in Virginia and the Mountain South since colonial times, and the tradition of deglazing ham drippings with coffee likely came from Scots-Irish settlers who wasted nothing and never saw a reason to change. You poured it over grits or biscuits, and the bitterness of the coffee cut the salt and fat in a way that shouldn't have worked, but absolutely did. But the quick suppers didn't end with ham. Beneath all that smoky pork lay a whole world of mountain resourcefulness, where garden scraps and foraged food and vegetables nobody else wanted carried as much weight as any cut of meat. Creamed corn on toast was one of those meals that sounds wrong until you've had it handed to you by someone who grew up eating it every week. You opened a can of creamed corn, Del Monte, Green Giant, whatever was on sale, heated it in a saucepan until it steamed, and poured it over a piece of buttered toast. The corn soaked into the bread, and the whole thing became soft and sweet and thick, somewhere between a side dish and a porridge. Through the 40s and 50s, it was a cafeteria staple and a weeknight rescue in homes where a can of corn and a loaf of bread were always on the shelf. No one photographed it, no one bragged about it, but millions of Americans ate it for supper at least once a week, especially the ones cooking alone, because one can of creamed corn was exactly the right amount for one person, and that math mattered when nobody else was coming to the table. Sorghum biscuit was the mountain sweetener's answer to fancy breakfast pastries, featuring that thick amber syrup poured over hot split biscuits. Sorghum, pressed from tall cane stalks grown in Appalachian hollows, had a distinctive flavor that was earthier and less refined than molasses or honey. The syrup was drizzled generously over buttered biscuits still steaming from the oven, pooling in the bread's soft interior. Children licked their fingers clean after every bite, savoring the mineral-rich sweetness that no store-bought syrup could match. Families grew their own sorghum cane and pressed it at community mills each fall, creating enough syrup to last through winter. The flavor carried hints of smoke and grass, a taste that connected people directly to the land they worked. This sandwich required nothing fancy, just fresh biscuits and homemade syrup. Yet it delivered satisfaction that modern breakfast treats cannot replicate. Sorghum biscuits represented self-sufficiency and the pride of producing your own sweetness. Jellied cranberry sauce straight from the can remained the nostalgic favorite that many families preferred over fancier preparations, its ridged cylinder sliced into perfect rounds. Grandmothers who understood their families knew that some traditions shouldn't be tampered with, and for many households, that meant the distinctive whoosh and plop of cranberry sauce leaving its can. The sauce was sliced into rounds approximately half an inch thick, then overlapped on a serving plate in a neat row that showed off the ridged impressions from the can. Some families preferred the sauce broken up with a fork, while others considered the intact rounds essential to proper holiday presentation. The sweet tart flavor cut through rich turkey and gravy, providing the acidic contrast that made heavy meals more balanced. Children often ate the cranberry sauce plain, savoring its jelly-like texture and concentrated berry sweetness. This humble canned sauce proved that sometimes tradition mattered more than sophistication. Cheese and crackers with apple slices assembled a complete supper without any cooking whatsoever, satisfying seniors who valued simplicity above all else. Sharp cheddar or American cheese was sliced from a block and arranged on a plate alongside saltines or wheat crackers. An apple, sliced into wedges and sometimes dipped in lemon juice to prevent browning, added freshness and fiber to the arrangement. The combination provided protein from cheese, carbohydrates from crackers, and vitamins from fruit in proportions that doctors would approve. This was particularly popular during summer months when heating the kitchen seemed unbearable, and appetites ran small anyway. The plate looked almost elegant despite requiring no skill beyond basic knife work. Seniors could eat at their own pace, assembling each bite according to preference. Cheese and crackers with apple represented the dignity of a composed plate rather than random grazing, turning simple ingredients into something that felt intentional and proper for people dining alone. Cornflake peanut clusters delivered a satisfying crunch that ended many picnics on a sweet note. Cornflakes were poured into a wide bowl, while peanut butter, sugar, and a splash of milk were heated together on the stovetop until smooth and bubbling. The hot mixture was poured over the cereal and stirred quickly to coat every flake before being dropped by spoonfuls onto wax paper. As the clusters cooled, they hardened into golden mounds that held their shape even in the warm afternoon sun. Each bite combined the nutty richness of peanut butter with the crisp texture of cornflakes, making them an instant favorite for children and adults alike. Because they required no baking and very little time, they became a go-to recipe for busy church members preparing food for large gatherings. The clusters could be made hours ahead and stayed fresh in simple tins, waiting to be shared after long conversations, hymns, and laughter beneath the shade of spreading oak trees. Applesauce spice cake in a skillet was the taste of comfort baked fast enough to keep up with a post-war kitchen. Housewives mixed it right in the pan: flour, sugar, applesauce, cinnamon, and a spoon of shortening. No separate bowl needed, no fuss to clean. In 10 minutes, it filled the air with the scent of spice and home. The batter rose into a tender golden cake that stayed moist from the applesauce itself, a trick every busy cook knew by heart. It was a recipe for a family that worked hard, loved deeply, and had little time to spare. The joy of cooking praised it as good economy, but those who made it knew it was more than that. It was gratitude, baked warm and fast. Served with a dollop of whipped cream or eaten straight from the skillet, it disappeared before it cooled. Every bite carried cinnamon and comfort, proof that even the simplest sweets could hold a family together at the end of a long day. The applesauce spice cake reminded a generation that ease and care could live side by side, all in one humble skillet. Rocky Road squares combined marshmallows, nuts, and chocolate in layered bars that looked bakery-made but required no baking, just melting and pressing. Chocolate chips melted with butter while mini marshmallows and chopped walnuts waited in bowls. Then everything folded together and pressed into pans. The mixture was refrigerated briefly until firm, then cut into neat squares that showed marbled patterns of white marshmallow against dark chocolate. Each bite delivered multiple textures: creamy chocolate, chewy marshmallow, crunchy nuts. During the 1960s, Rocky Road appeared at cookie exchanges and potlucks, made by women who understood layered treats impressed guests. The recipe was forgiving, working with whatever nuts were available and any chocolate variety. Children loved the marshmallow surprise, pulling squares apart to find hidden pockets. What made Rocky Road special was visual interest. Every square looked different, creating variety from consistent recipe. Vienna sausages with mustard sauce were one of those recipes that combined convenience with just enough flair to feel like a real meal. The sausages came straight from a can, which made them affordable and easy to store. To prepare them, homemakers browned the small links in a skillet and then whisked together a quick glaze of mustard, vinegar, and sugar. Once poured over the sizzling sausages, the sauce thickened slightly, coating them in a tangy, sweet flavor that elevated the humble meat. Families often served the dish over toast, crackers, or with mashed potatoes to make it stretch further. Old cookbooks highlighted this as a dependable recipe for busy nights, when you needed something on the table fast. Children liked the mild flavor of the sausages, while adults appreciated the sharp bite of the mustard sauce. It was not elegant food, but it was practical, filling, and just distinctive enough to stand out from the ordinary. In many homes, this quick recipe became an affordable treat remembered long after the cans disappeared from the pantry. Quick pickled onion rings were a tangy and crunchy addition to many 1960s sandwiches and salads, made by soaking thin red onion slices in a simple vinegar brine. This speedy pickling process softened the onion's bite while preserving their vibrant color and crisp texture. The resulting rings added sharp acidity and a refreshing crunch that brightened heavier dishes and complemented cold cuts and burgers. Popular at picnics, barbecues, and casual family meals, these pickled onion rings could be prepared in just minutes and stored for later use. Their ease of preparation and bold flavor aligned with the mid-century preference for quick, flavorful condiments that enhanced simple foods. While pickled onions remain popular today, this particular quick pickling method evokes a nostalgic approach to homemade, tangy toppings that defined 1960s American cooking. Peach Melba Parfait was an easy-to-make dessert that layered peaches, raspberry sauce, and whipped cream to create a visually appealing and flavorful treat. This parfait celebrated fresh or canned peaches combined with the tartness of raspberry sauce, balanced by the richness of whipped cream or sometimes custard. Its preparation required minimal effort, often involving assembling the ingredients in glasses or bowls and chilling briefly before serving. Popular during the mid-20th century, the dessert reflected the era's love for elegant but uncomplicated sweets that could be enjoyed at home or social occasions. Peach Melba Parfait offered a refreshing contrast of flavors and textures, making it suitable for warmer seasons or as a light finish to a meal. The dish is named after a famed opera singer, adding a touch of sophistication to an otherwise straightforward recipe. This parfait remains a nostalgic favorite for those who remember its delicate balance of sweetness and tartness. Fish stick. Po' boy brought a taste of the Gulf Coast to busy kitchens using only what sat in the freezer. Packaged fish sticks baked or pan-fried until their coating turned golden and crunchy, while soft sandwich rolls warmed in the oven. Tartar sauce was stirred together with chopped pickles, a squeeze of lemon, and a little mustard, filling the kitchen with a tangy scent. Shredded lettuce and thin tomato slices waited on the counter, ready to add freshness and color. As soon as the fish sticks finished, they were stacked inside the rolls, drizzled with the cool sauce, and topped with the crisp vegetables. The contrast of hot, flaky fish and chilled toppings tasted like a seaside lunch, even on a weeknight far from the water. In less than 15 minutes, a handful of inexpensive ingredients became a meal that felt special, making families forget how quickly it came together. Every crunchy bite delivered the carefree feeling of a coastal vacation without leaving the house, a reminder that a freezer staple can still capture the spirit of a faraway kitchen when imagination and hunger meet. Number 14. Cheese Dreams. A slice of white bread topped with a slice of American cheese and placed under the broiler until the cheese melted and the edges browned. That was the entire recipe. In the 1940s and 1950s, these appeared in women's magazines as party appetizers, cut into triangles and served on platters. But by the time a senior was eating alone in a quiet kitchen in the 1970s, cheese dreams were not a party, they were dinner. A package of American cheese cost 69 cents in 1975. A loaf of bread cost 36 cents. The combination lasted a week or more. The broiler did all the work. 3 minutes, and the cheese was bubbling, golden, and stretching away from the bread in long strings that burned your mouth if you ate it too fast. That burn was the best part. It meant the food was hot, which meant the kitchen was working, which meant you were still managing. A hot meal, even a small one, felt like proof of something. A cold sandwich did not carry the same weight. Number 19. American goulash. Not Hungarian goulash. American. The difference mattered. The first recipe for this dish appeared in a 1910 American cookbook under the name chop suey with ground beef, macaroni, and tomatoes. By the 1970s, Chef Boyardee had commercialized it in a can, and grandmothers across the Midwest rolled their eyes and kept making it the right way. Frank's version was a quarter-pound of ground beef browned in the Farberware pan, a can of stewed tomatoes poured over it, a handful of elbow macaroni dropped in raw. The pasta cooked in the tomato juice. 8 minutes. Lid on. 1 pan, 1 plate, no colander to wash. He ate it with a heel of bread and remembered Sunday afternoons at his mother-in-law's kitchen in Bloomfield when the same dish fed 9 cousins. Number 13, scrambled eggs and toast. Clara Canucciari was 93 years old when her grandson filmed her making Depression-era recipes in her kitchen. One of the first things she made was scrambled eggs. She cracked 2 eggs into a bowl, stirred them with a fork, poured them into a buttered pan, and pushed them around for 90 seconds. 2 slices of toast on the side. That was dinner. During the Depression, her family ate scrambled eggs 3 or 4 times a week because a dozen eggs cost 18 cents in 1933, and each egg was a self-contained meal. In 2024, a dozen eggs cost around $3.50 at most grocery stores, which still made each egg less than 30 cents. For a senior with limited grip strength, cracking eggs was sometimes the hardest part. Some kept a small bowl on the counter to crack them against the edge. Some bought liquid eggs in cartons. The adaptation was quiet, practical, and invisible, like most things seniors did to keep themselves fed. The videos Clara made with her grandson gained millions of views on YouTube. Hominy is corn soaked in an alkaline solution, wood ash, lye, or slaked lime, until the outer hull loosens and the kernel becomes something entirely different, a process called nixtamalization that the Cherokee and other Native American nations had practiced for centuries before European settlers arrived in the Appalachian Mountains and learned it from them. The alkaline treatment unlocked niacin that dried corn could not release on its own, and the settlers who adopted it kept their families healthier without knowing exactly why. By the 1950s, most Appalachian families got their hominy from a can. Van Camp's was the brand most kitchens stocked, warming it in a skillet with butter and cracked black pepper. Old-timers remembered when it was supper itself, heaped into a bowl, eaten hot enough to steam. The flavor was different from grits, blunter and chewier, and anyone who grew up eating it never confused the two. It was its own thing, and the people who understood that distinction are mostly gone. And if Braunschweiger was too rich for the pantry, there was always sugar bread. The meal that had no business being called a meal at all. A slice of white bread, a smear of butter if you had it, a heavy shake of white sugar on top. That was it. During the Depression, when sugar cost 4 cents a pound and bread was a nickel a loaf, sugar bread was what mothers gave children who said they were still hungry after supper was gone. It wasn't nutrition, it was a negotiation. Some families skipped the butter entirely, just bread and sugar, folded in half so the crystals wouldn't fall. The strange thing is that people remember it with love, not bitterness. It tasted sweet. It came from someone who was trying. And when you're 8 years old and your mother hands you something that sparkles, you don't ask what it cost her to have nothing better to offer. You just eat it and feel lucky. A fried mush sandwich turned yesterday's cornmeal porridge into this morning's crispy breakfast in the time it took to heat a skillet. Leftover cornmeal mush was poured into loaf pans the night before, where it would set firm as it cooled. Come morning, thick slices were cut from the solidified mush and fried in lard or bacon grease until both sides developed a golden crust that crackled when bitten. These crispy slices were placed between bread or simply eaten with syrup poured over top. The texture contrast was remarkable, the exterior shattering to reveal a creamy, corn-sweet interior that brought comfort and sustenance. This sandwich stretched resources brilliantly, turning one pot of mush into multiple meals across 2 days. Farm families across the Midwest and South relied on this transformation, knowing that nothing cooked should ever go to waste. Children especially loved the sweet corn flavor combined with the satisfying crunch, making it a breakfast worth waking early for. Hot spiced fruit compote was the warm side dish that grandmothers assembled from canned fruits transformed by butter, brown sugar, and Christmas spices into something that tasted homemade and special. Canned peach halves, pear halves, pineapple rings, and maraschino cherries were drained and arranged in baking dishes, then dotted with butter and sprinkled with brown sugar, cinnamon, and a pinch of nutmeg. 10 minutes under the broiler or in a hot oven, caramelize the sugar into a glossy glaze while warming the fruits through. The compote was served hot alongside ham or turkey, its sweetness complementing savory meats while its warmth contrasted with cold salads and relishes. Grandmothers who wanted extra richness added a splash of rum or brandy before baking, the alcohol burning off while leaving behind its warm flavor. Hot spiced fruit compote proved that canned goods, when treated with creativity and care, could become memorable holiday dishes. Tuna salad on toast turned a humble can of fish into a complete supper that required no cooking beyond making toast and provided protein that aging bodies needed. The tuna was drained thoroughly and mixed with mayonnaise, a squeeze of lemon juice if available, and whatever additions the refrigerator offered, perhaps chopped celery for crunch, pickle relish for tang, or a sprinkle of onion for sharpness. This mixture was spooned generously onto toast that was still warm enough to slightly soften the bottom layer of tuna salad while keeping the top fresh and cool. The combination provided protein, carbohydrates, and enough substance to keep hunger satisfied through long evenings. Some seniors preferred their tuna salad cold on crackers during summer months, while others always wanted the warmth of toast beneath. Tuna salad on toast proved that simple pantry staples could create genuine satisfaction for seniors dining alone. Peanut butter stuffed dates were a small but mighty snack that offered quick energy for children racing across the picnic grounds. Plump pitted dates were split open and carefully filled with creamy peanut butter whose salty richness balanced the natural caramel sweetness of the fruit. A light sprinkle of coarse salt or finely chopped roasted peanuts added crunch and kept the flavors lively. These little bites required no baking and could be prepared in minutes, which made them a favorite for busy church cooks already juggling dozens of dishes. The sticky sweetness clung to fingers and lips, and many children giggled as they tried to eat them neatly, while elders smiled at the familiar sight. Packed into wax paper-lined tins, they traveled perfectly and stayed fresh even in the summer heat. Adults appreciated how such a simple combination could provide lasting energy for long conversations and gospel singing deep into the evening. Every bite carried the warmth of home kitchens where mothers and grandmothers filled plates with love and thrift, turning everyday pantry staples into a treat worth remembering. Cottage pudding with hot lemon sauce was the dessert that made any meal feel complete, no matter how simple the dinner that came before it. Despite its name, it was not pudding at all but a soft, buttery cake, light, fragrant, and ready to soak up every drop of syrup poured over it. The joy of cooking praised it as speedy comfort, something that could be mixed and baked in the time it took coffee to brew. Flour, milk, sugar, and butter came together in one bowl, transforming pantry staples into something worthy of company. The hot lemon sauce was what made it sing, a bright, golden syrup that cut through the sweetness like sunlight after rain. Served straight from the oven, steam curling up through the sauce, it filled kitchens with the scent of home. It was the dessert for long evenings, for Sunday suppers, or for quiet nights when a family needed something kind. Its beauty lay in its modesty. No frosting, no decoration, just truth and flavor. Every spoonful felt like gratitude made edible, a reminder that joy was often simple, quick, and within reach. Candied orange peel was sophisticated confection that seemed to require expertise but came together in minutes using just boiling and dipping. Orange peels were cut into strips and boiled briefly to remove bitterness, then tossed in sugar while still warm until coated thickly. Some grandmothers dipped one end in melted chocolate, creating elegant two-tone treats. The result was sweet, bitter, bright, each strip delivering concentrated citrus flavor with gentle resistance between teeth. During the 1950s, candied peel appeared in decorative tins given as gifts, made by women who appreciated European elegance on American budgets. The recipe required oranges that cost pennies and sugar already in the pantry. Children helped cut peels into strips, learning that fancy didn't mean expensive. The peel kept for weeks in covered containers, improving with age as flavors deepened. What made candied orange peel remarkable was sophistication from simplicity, proving Christmas treats could be both quick and genuinely refined. Grapefruit halves with brown sugar were a breakfast table staple in the 40s and 50s, and they could not be simpler. Housewives would cut grapefruits in half, loosen the sections with a knife, sprinkle the tops with brown sugar, and place them under the broiler just long enough for the sugar to bubble. In less than 10 minutes, you had a dish that looked elegant, yet cost very little. The bitterness of the grapefruit paired with the sweetness of the caramelized sugar made for a refreshing start to the day. Many cookbooks praised this dish as a healthy option during a time when vitamins were heavily emphasized in advertising and diet culture. It also became popular as a light dessert for luncheons, adding a touch of sophistication without requiring any complicated preparation. With its bright color and quick assembly, this recipe was one of the easiest ways to impress with almost no effort. Curried cottage cheese spread was a flavorful cold dish that blended creamy cottage cheese with curry powder and fresh herbs, designed to be spread on crackers or toast. This recipe emerged during the 1960s when Americans were beginning to experiment with global flavors, incorporating mild curry spices into familiar dairy-based foods. The result was a spread that combined tanginess, spice, and creaminess, offering a unique twist on standard cheese spreads. It was quick to prepare, requiring only mixing of ingredients, making it an ideal 10-minute recipe for parties or light snacks. This spread reflected the era's growing curiosity about international cuisines and the desire to introduce new tastes into everyday meals. While curried cottage cheese spread is less common today, it remains a fascinating example of mid-century culinary experimentation and the blending of convenience with exciting flavors. Applesauce toast with nutmeg was the frugal breakfast tucked inside every homemaker column and Depression-era guide when groceries ran low but mornings kept coming. You would toast a slice of bread, smear it with applesauce, sprinkle a little nutmeg on top, and breakfast was done in under 10 minutes. It was practical, filling, and sweet enough to feel comforting when everything else felt stretched thin. Families leaned on meals like this when fruit was scarce, budgets were tight, and creativity had to carry the kitchen. Applesauce lasted longer than fresh fruit, nutmeg added warmth, and toast turned it all into a quick meal that actually filled you up. It was not fancy, but it worked, and you could find it everywhere from farm kitchens to city apartments. Some folks added butter, others kept it plain, but either way, it was one of those quiet little breakfasts that made hard mornings feel a little easier. These days, applesauce toast barely gets a mention, but back then it quietly carried families through. Though overshadowed by modern fast food, steak tips with garlic butter turned small pieces of beef into a dinner that tasted far more luxurious than the clock allowed. Bite-sized cubes of steak were seasoned with salt and pepper, then seared quickly in a smoking hot skillet until browned on the outside and just tender within. As the meat rested for a moment, butter melted in the pan with minced garlic and a handful of fresh parsley, creating a sauce that smelled like a steakhouse. The sizzling butter was poured back over the meat, coating every piece in rich, garlicky flavor. Served over toast, rice, or even plain with a side of vegetables, the dish offered restaurant-style indulgence in the time it took to set the table. Families loved how a modest amount of beef could feel like a feast, and the sound of butter hitting the hot pan became a signal that the day's work was over and something delicious was ready. Number 16. Deviled egg spread on crackers. Hard-boil 2 eggs. Mash them in a bowl with a fork. Add a spoonful of mayonnaise, a dash of mustard, salt, and pepper. Spread it on crackers. 5 minutes, start to finish. This was the church potluck dish shrunk down to a portion of 1. Women who used to make deviled eggs for a crowd of 40 still made the filling after everyone was gone, but instead of piping it into halved whites, they spread it on whatever crackers were in the cupboard and ate it alone at the counter. A dozen eggs cost 80 cents in 1978. 2 eggs, a dab of mayo, and a handful of crackers made a snack that cost less than 15 cents and provided more protein than most things in the pantry. The ritual of mashing and mixing was familiar. The flavor was familiar. The only thing that had changed was the size of the audience. Number 18. Spanish rice skillet. Frank made this the way a Navy cook had shown him in 1945 on a troop ship coming back from Leyte Gulf. 1 cup of long-grain rice, toasted in a dry pan until it smelled like popcorn. Half an onion. 1 can of diced tomatoes, chicken broth from a bouillon cube, cumin, chili powder, salt. 10 minutes covered, no peeking. The whole thing came out of the pan onto the plate in one heap, steam rising. The Navy cook, a man named Earl Ruiz from El Paso, had taught a dozen sailors this recipe on the long passage home because the galley was running short of everything except rice and canned tomatoes. 34 years later, Frank still made it the same way, including the cumin, which you could not buy on Webster Avenue in 1945, but which sat in a small jar in his cabinet in 1979. And the cumin was the detail that told you the dish had traveled. A man from the Hill District in Pittsburgh was cooking a recipe that had crossed 3 oceans and 40 years to land on his plate. Earl Ruiz had learned it from his own grandmother in El Paso. Earl's grandmother had learned it from her mother, who had cooked it on a cast-iron plancha over a wood fire in a small kitchen outside Juarez before the 1910 revolution. The recipe had passed through a troopship in 1945 and settled in a Pittsburgh row house by 1979. Frank did not know any of that. He knew the toasted smell of rice, the way the tomatoes bubbled down to paste, the small orange circles of fat on the surface when the cumin hit the hot oil. He knew the meal cost less than 80 cents to make and fed him for 2 nights. The rest of the history was carried in the bouillon cube and the small jar of cumin, silent, and he ate the dish without asking. Number 21, buttered noodles with salt and pepper. A box of store-brand egg noodles cost 89 cents and contained 8 servings. You boiled a handful, drained them, added a tablespoon of butter, salt, and black pepper. 3 minutes of cooking. 0 minutes of thought. This was the meal that mothers made for sick children in the 1950s, and that widowers made for themselves in the 1990s. The simplicity was not a compromise. It was the entire point. For a senior whose appetite had faded, plain buttered noodles went down easy and stayed down. No strong flavors to reject, no textures to fight. Nursing home cooks knew this. When a resident refused everything else on the tray, they brought buttered noodles. It worked almost every time. The meal was so plain it was invisible. Nobody photographed it. Nobody wrote about it. But it kept people eating when nothing else could. A geriatric nutritionist at Johns Hopkins published a paper in 2018 noting that simple carbohydrate meals like buttered noodles played a critical role in preventing dangerous weight loss among elderly patients living independently. Nobody called them hoe cakes because they were fashionable. They got the name because early Appalachian settlers sometimes cooked them on the flat of a hoe blade held over an open fire when no skillet was available, a technique documented in the Foxfire series of oral histories from the 1970s. By the time these kitchens were at their peak, hoe cakes were made in cast iron with no ceremony. Cornmeal, a pinch of salt, enough water for a pourable batter, dropped onto a hot greased skillet in silver dollar rounds and cooked until the edges went lacy. They were done in under 10 minutes. No oven, no yeast, no waiting. You could make them while the beans simmered and have bread on the table before the pot was ready. Some cooks added an egg. Most didn't. They used what they had, which was cornmeal and bacon grease in a hot pan. Younger generations grew up thinking cornbread always came from a box and always baked in the oven. So the knowledge of making bread on a stovetop with nothing but cornmeal and heat slipped away quietly, without anyone choosing to let it go. Hot water cornbread came from the oldest kitchens in America, Native American and African American homes, where cornmeal, salt, and water were sometimes everything a family had to work with. You poured boiling water over cornmeal and a pinch of salt, stirred until it formed a soft dough, shaped it into small patties with wet hands, and dropped them into a skillet of hot grease. The outside crisped golden in about 3 minutes per side. The inside stayed creamy and dense, almost like warm porridge. During the Depression, when a bag of cornmeal cost a few cents and could stretch for weeks, this was the dish that stood between hunger and holding on. No egg, no milk, no flour, just corn and water and fire. Some families crumbled it into a bowl of cold milk for supper. Others ate it alongside whatever greens they could pull from the yard. The women who made it never once measured the water. They poured until the dough felt right, and that feel lived nowhere but in their hands. Molasses butter biscuit was a sweet morning treat that sustained generations of children heading off to school or fieldwork. A fresh biscuit, still warm from the wood stove, would be split open and spread generously with butter that melted instantly into the crumb. Then came the molasses. That dark, thick syrup drizzled over the butter until it pooled in the biscuit's crevices. The combination created something between breakfast and dessert, the butter's richness cutting the molasses' intense sweetness. During hard times when sugar was expensive, molasses served as the sweetener of choice for rural families across the South. Children wrapped these sandwiches in cloth napkins, carrying them to one-room schoolhouses where they provided energy through long morning lessons. The taste was bold and distinctive, nothing like the mild sweetness of modern pastries. This sandwich represented care and creativity, proving that even the simplest ingredients could make mornings feel special. Ambrosia salad appeared at Christmas gatherings in cut glass bowls, its layers of fruit and coconut glistening with sweetness that children considered dessert masquerading as a side dish. Grandmothers assembled it from canned mandarin oranges, pineapple chunks, maraschino cherries, miniature marshmallows, and shredded coconut, all folded together with sour cream or whipped topping. The preparation required nothing more than opening cans, draining fruit, and stirring everything together in a large bowl before chilling. Some versions included sliced bananas added just before serving to prevent browning, while others incorporated chopped pecans for crunch. The name ambrosia referenced the food of the gods, and to children of the era, it truly seemed divine, sweet, creamy, and studded with colorful fruit and puffy marshmallows. Grandmothers knew the salad improved after chilling for an hour, allowing the marshmallows to soften slightly and the flavors to meld into creamy harmony. Bread and milk bowl was perhaps the oldest and simplest supper in the American pantry, dating back centuries and persisting through every economic hardship. Seniors who remembered harder times often returned to this dish when cooking seemed too effortful and appetites had shrunk with age. The preparation required nothing more than tearing bread into pieces, placing them in a bowl, and pouring cold or warm milk over the top. Sugar was sprinkled according to taste, transforming the humble combination into something approaching dessert. Some preferred their bread and milk warm, heating the milk gently before pouring. Others liked it cold, especially during summer months. The bread softened quickly, becoming easy to eat with a spoon, gentle on sensitive stomachs and aging teeth. This was food stripped to its essence. For seniors eating alone, bread and milk represented self-sufficiency and comfort of familiar flavors, asking nothing and giving everything a tired body needed. Cold spaghetti omelet transformed yesterday's dinner into a surprising lunch treat that delighted thrifty church cooks. Leftover spaghetti, often sauced lightly with tomato, was folded into beaten eggs, seasoned with black pepper and a touch of grated cheese, then poured into a hot skillet. As it cooked, the pasta strands settled into a golden crust while the eggs puffed gently around them. The omelet was flipped once to achieve a crisp exterior and a tender interior that sliced easily into wedges. Served at room temperature, it traveled well and stayed tasty even after hours on the picnic table. This dish reflected the inventive spirit of home cooks who refused to waste a single noodle and proved that a satisfying meal could come from simple leftovers. Children enjoyed the playful texture, while adults appreciated the hearty flavor that paired perfectly with fresh greens or sliced tomatoes from the church garden. It stood as a testament to resourcefulness and the belief that no blessing, however small, should ever be thrown away. Maple butter popovers rose high and proud in just 10 minutes, their golden shells hiding soft, steamy centers. The joy of cooking called them a breakfast for guests or gratitude, though they were simple enough for any day. Made from eggs, milk, and flour, the batter puffed in the heat of the oven until it formed perfect little cups. A drizzle of maple butter, just melted butter and syrup, turned them into something heavenly. They were crisp outside, airy within, and smelled like Sunday morning comfort. Served with coffee or hot tea, they disappeared almost as fast as they baked. Even decades later, their charm feels timeless. They were small triumphs of timing and patience, proof that good baking did not need hours or extravagance, only care. Every bite melted into sweetness and warmth, leaving the kitchen filled with the scent of maple and home. Coconut bonbons were 10-minute wonders that transformed sweetened condensed milk and coconut into elegant candies worthy of fancy boxes. The mixture came together with just stirring. Condensed milk, shredded coconut, powdered sugar, and vanilla blended until stiff, then rolled into balls. Within minutes, trays of perfect spheres lined counters, each one a bite-sized indulgence that melted creamy sweet on the tongue. Some grandmothers added food coloring, creating pink and green bonbons that looked store-bought, while others studded centers with cherry pieces or nuts. In the 1960s, these candies appeared in decorative tins given as hostess gifts. The recipe required no cooking, no thermometers, just hands and willingness to get sticky. Children fought over scraping the bowl, and candies kept for weeks when stored properly. What made coconut bonbons special was how they delivered richness without heaviness, sweetness without cloying, creating perfect bites that satisfied completely. Quick escalloped tomatoes was one of those recipes that appeared in nearly every community cookbook because of its low cost and speed. The instructions were straightforward. Open a can of tomatoes, stir them with breadcrumbs, butter, and a pinch of sugar, then bake them just until hot and bubbling. In 10 minutes flat, you had a side dish that stretched canned goods into something hearty and flavorful. Families served it alongside meats or with slices of bread, and it quickly became a way to make canned vegetables feel more like a proper meal. The texture of soft tomatoes and crunchy crumbs gave it appeal, while the butter made it feel more indulgent than it really was. For many households, this was the kind of recipe that bridged the gap between practicality and comfort, proving that even with limited ingredients, flavor could still shine. Cold asparagus and mayonnaise salad was a simple and refreshing side dish featuring tender asparagus spears tossed in a light mayonnaise-based dressing and chilled before serving. Popular in 1960s America, this salad was often served at summer picnics, dinner parties, and holiday meals as a cool counterpoint to richer entrees. The mayonnaise dressing, sometimes flavored with lemon juice or herbs, added creaminess that complemented the crisp yet delicate texture of fresh asparagus. This salad was prized for its ease of preparation and elegant presentation, often arranged on lettuce leaves or decorative plates. It fit perfectly into the 10-minute recipe trend, providing a fresh vegetable option that required minimal cooking or fuss. Although tastes have shifted toward vinaigrette-based dressings, cold asparagus salad remains a nostalgic favorite for those who appreciate classic, creamy vegetable sides that evoke the charm of 1960s dining. Baked macaroni and cheese cups were an innovative take on a beloved comfort food, offering individual portions that cooked quickly and were perfect for family meals. These cups involved preparing traditional macaroni and cheese, then portioning it into muffin tins or ramekins before baking until golden and bubbly on top. This method allowed for convenient serving sizes and faster cooking times compared to larger casseroles. Baked macaroni and cheese cups appealed to mid-century families for their simplicity and ability to please both children and adults. The recipe made use of familiar ingredients like elbow macaroni, cheddar cheese, and milk, combining them into a portable, visually appealing form. It reflected the era's growing interest in convenience and portion control without sacrificing the creamy richness of classic mac and cheese. This dish continues to evoke warm memories of home-cooked meals and innovative twists on traditional recipes. Creamed peas on toast turned a bag of frozen peas and a little flour into a fast dinner that warmed the evening. Butter melted in a skillet while a spoonful of flour was whisked in to make a smooth roux. Then milk streamed in to form a creamy sauce. The peas went straight from freezer to pan, bright green against the pale gravy as they softened and released their sweetness. Thick slices of bread toasted in the same pan or under a quick broiler became the foundation, soaking up the sauce while staying crisp at the edges. A sprinkle of black pepper and a pinch of nutmeg gave the dish surprising depth, proof that simple pantry ingredients could still feel indulgent. Families loved how it filled plates in less than 10 minutes and cost almost nothing, making it a dependable weeknight standby. Children liked the mild flavor and the fun of cutting through the soft bread with a fork, while adults found comfort in its quiet, creamy richness. One bite carried the memory of suppers built on thrift and ingenuity, a reminder that speed and satisfaction can share the same plate when time and money are scarce, but hunger is real. Number 13. Applesauce on toast. A slice of toast spread with a thick layer of applesauce from a jar. That was it. In the Midwest and through the Pennsylvania Dutch country, applesauce was not a side dish. It was a staple. Families made it from windfall apples in the fall and canned enough jars to last until spring. A store-bought jar cost 45 cents in 1978. It kept for months unopened and days in the refrigerator after that. For a senior with swallowing difficulties, this was one of the safest foods in the pantry. Smooth, soft, slightly sweet, and impossible to choke on. The toast added just enough texture to make it feel like eating rather than drinking. Spread it, sit down, eat it. No standing required beyond the 90 seconds it took to toast the bread. Here is something that food companies never talk about. The snacks on this list were designed by necessity, not by chefs. Nobody tested them in a focus group. Nobody photographed them for a cookbook. They existed because a person with $12 in the checking account and a body that ached from the knees up needed to eat something before bed. The food industry spends billions every year selling snacks that cost $3 or $4 per serving. Protein bars, cheese platters, artisanal crackers. These cost pennies. The difference is not quality. The difference is that nobody makes money when a senior spreads applesauce on a piece of toast. There is no brand ambassador for bread and butter with sugar. There is no advertising campaign for crackers and milk. The cheapest snacks in America are invisible because they are unprofitable, and the people who eat them are invisible for the same reason. Number 22. Tomato soup with rice. 1 can of Campbell's condensed tomato, 23 cents at Kroger in 1979. Half a cup of leftover rice from the night before. A tablespoon of butter stirred in at the end. You heated the soup, stirred in the rice, let the rice warm through. 6 minutes. This was a dish that Polish grandmothers in the Hill District had been making for 60 years, long before Campbell's put it on their label. In the old country, the rice was whatever was cheapest that month. Wheat, barley, sometimes potato grated thin. In Pittsburgh, it was Uncle Ben's. One thing few people talk about with this dish is how the rice thickened the soup into something heavier than soup, something closer to porridge, the way peasant food has always found ways to stretch itself into a full meal. He learned it from a woman named Helena Kowalski, who lived 2 doors down on Webster Avenue and brought him a covered bowl the week Rose died. She did not speak much English. She did not need to. The bowl was the sentence. The recipe came with it, pantomimed at his kitchen counter the next afternoon. A can of soup, a scoop of rice, a finger to her lips and a shake of her head, meaning no salt, the can has enough. Then she left. Frank made it that night, and again the next. Number 17. Cheese quesadilla. 1 flour tortilla, a handful of shredded cheese, a dry skillet. Fold the tortilla in half, drop it in the pan, flip it once. 2 minutes. The cheese melted and held the tortilla together, and the edges crisped in the dry heat. Total cost, about 40 cents. Mexican-American families in South Texas made this for children as an afternoon snack. Seniors adopted it as a full meal because it was fast, required one hand, and could be eaten without a fork. A retired school bus driver in San Antonio named Ruben Garza told his daughter he ate quesadillas 4 nights a week. She asked what he ate the other 3 nights. He said crackers. The flour tortilla was introduced to American grocery stores on a national scale in the early 1980s. Before that, you had to live near a Mexican bakery or make your own. By 2024, flour tortillas outsold hamburger buns in the United States. The shift was not cultural appreciation, it was economics. A package of 10 tortillas cost $2.49. A package of 8 hamburger buns cost $3.29. Chocolate gravy is exactly the kind of dish that makes people from outside Appalachia raise an eyebrow until they taste it. In Kentucky and Tennessee mountain kitchens, it was made with cocoa powder, flour, sugar, and water. No milk, no butter, cooked until thick and glossy. then spooned hot over biscuits as a supper that was both meal and dessert, and neither one exactly. The recipe spread through families in the Cumberland Plateau, from women who knew that sugar and starch could fill a stomach as surely as any meat, and that children who refused beans for the third night running would eat without complaint if something sweet came with it. The wider food world discovered chocolate gravy in the early 2000s and called it Southern, but it was Appalachian first, specific to these mountains. Every family made it slightly differently, some using milk, some adding butter at the end, some keeping no written recipe at all. When your grandmother stopped making it, the version she made stopped existing, and the distance between her version and every other version closed to nothing. Welsh rarebit turned bread and cheese into something that almost passed for a real dinner, and for decades it rescued Americans who opened the refrigerator and found close to nothing. The dish traces to Hannah Glass's The Art of Cookery in 1747, where it appeared as Welsh rabbit, the dark joke being that families too poor for actual rabbit ate melted cheese instead. By the 1940s, it was a lunch counter fixture. Cheddar melted with a splash of ale, dry mustard, a few drops of Worcestershire, poured thick over toast. Stouffer's later sold a frozen version that moved millions of units, and whole generations grew up knowing that orange sauce as the weeknight rescue. One saucepan, one burner, whatever cheese was on hand, and under 10 minutes from a cold kitchen to a full plate. For a widower who never learned more than a handful of dishes, rarebit was a meal that felt respectable, warm, filling, and decent enough to sit down for, even when only one chair was pulled from the table. Cornbread crumble sandwich was a resourceful breakfast that gave yesterday's cornbread new life with nothing more than buttermilk in a bowl. Leftover cornbread was crumbled into chunks, then covered with cold buttermilk until the bread softened but didn't completely dissolve. Some families added a spoon of sugar, others preferred it savory with a pinch of salt. The mixture was eaten with a spoon but carried the same satisfaction as any handheld sandwich. This wasn't elegant food, but rather survival cuisine that wasted nothing and provided genuine nourishment. The tangy buttermilk combined with the sweet cornmeal created a flavor profile that was distinctly Southern and deeply comforting. Farm families ate this during summer months when cold food appealed more than hot biscuits. Children grew up with this as a familiar breakfast option, never questioning its unusual form. The sandwich represented practical wisdom, showing how creativity could transform leftovers into something worth eating. Cranberry orange relish was the bright, fresh condiment that grandmothers whipped up in their new food processors or old-fashioned meat grinders, while other dishes simmered on the stove. Unlike the jellied cranberry sauce that slid from cans, this relish sparkled with texture and tartness that cut through rich holiday foods like nothing else could. The recipe required just 3 ingredients: fresh cranberries, a whole orange cut into chunks including the peel, and sugar to taste. Everything went through the grinder or processor until coarsely chopped, the orange oils releasing their perfume as they mixed with the berries. The relish needed time for flavors to meld, but the actual preparation took under 5 minutes of active work. Grandmothers made it the night before or early Christmas morning, letting it chill while they focused on the main meal. The vibrant ruby color looked stunning in cut glass dishes that came out only for holidays, proving that the simplest preparations often made the most beautiful presentations. Cottage cheese and canned fruit became staple supper for seniors who needed protein without cooking effort and welcomed sweetness without dessert guilt. This combination required nothing more than spooning cottage cheese onto a plate and arranging canned peach halves, pear slices, or fruit cocktail alongside. The curds provided protein and calcium, while fruit offered vitamins and comfort of something sweet. During the 1950s and 60s, this was considered health food, recommended by doctors for patients needing gentle nourishment. The cottage cheese came in different curd sizes according to preference, and canned fruit ranged from budget brands to premium varieties. Some seniors added cinnamon or honey when company feelings struck. The cost remained minimal, since both ingredients kept well and stretched across multiple meals. Cottage cheese and canned fruit represented the intersection of economy and nutrition that practical seniors navigated daily, providing satisfaction without demanding time or energy. Frosted pineapple rings, were the kind of cheerful dish that caught every eye on a church picnic table in the 1960s. Thick, golden slices of canned pineapple were drained and patted dry before being chilled on a wide platter. A creamy mixture of softened cream cheese whipped with powdered sugar and a drop of vanilla was then piped or spooned into the center of each ring, forming a snowy crown that contrasted beautifully with the bright fruit. Some cooks added a cherry on top for a pop of red, while others sprinkled finely chopped pecans to give a delicate crunch. The sweet tart pineapple paired perfectly with the tangy cream cheese, making each bite a refreshing balance of flavors. Because the ingredients were inexpensive and easy to find year-round, these rings became a reliable favorite for large gatherings. They held up well in the summer heat and stayed cool inside picnic baskets packed with ice, offering a sweet treat that required no baking and almost no time. Guests often reached for them first, drawn by their glossy shine and promise of bright tropical flavor amid a spread of hearty casseroles and smoky barbecue. It was a simple dessert that tasted like sunshine and fellowship. Tomato rarebit was comfort poured over toast. Imagine a smooth, cheese-rich sauce flavored with tomato, butter, and a pinch of mustard. Simple, warm, and filling. It was a cousin to Welsh rarebit, but humbler, faster, and easier to love. The joy of cooking tucked it among its light suppers, promising a full meal made in minutes. It was cooked in one pan, whisked until glossy, then ladled over slices of buttered bread or crackers. The result was creamy and tangy, with a sharpness that cut through the richness of cheese. It fit perfectly into the rhythms of everyday life, something to make after work or to stretch what was left in the icebox. Even when times were tight, this dish brought a touch of luxury to the table. The smell of tomato and melted cheese was like comfort distilled. Every bite carried the warmth of an era when simplicity was both necessity and art. Rum balls were the grown-up Christmas candy that came together in minutes, combining crushed vanilla wafers with cocoa, corn syrup, and dark rum that gave them sophistication. Everything mixed in one bowl: cookie crumbs, sugar, cocoa, nuts, and rum to bind it, then rolled into spheres and coated in powdered sugar. The mixture needed no baking or cooking beyond brief shaping time. Within 10 minutes, elegant candies sat ready, their boozy edge making them decidedly adult treats. During the 1950s, rum balls were cocktail party staples, made by hostesses who appreciated recipes that impressed without demanding kitchen time. The flavor deepened if stored a day or two as rum penetrated deeper into wafer crumbs, creating richness that seemed impossible from quick preparation. Men particularly loved these, appreciating the rum kick that set them apart from sugary confections. What made rum balls remarkable was how they brought bar cart sophistication to the cookie tray. Potato pancakes from Instant Mash proved that even convenience products could be reimagined into something homey and satisfying. Old cookbooks often suggested taking leftover mashed potatoes, or even instant ones prepared quickly, mixing them with an egg and a little flour, then frying them in a skillet until golden. In less than 10 minutes, you had crispy, comforting patties that worked for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. The beauty of this hack was how it turned something as simple as potato flakes into a versatile dish with real character. Families enjoyed topping them with sour cream, applesauce, or gravy, depending on what was available. For homemakers trying to save time while still offering variety, this recipe felt like a small victory. It proved that even shortcuts could deliver a dish that tasted just as good as traditional versions. Quick chili cheese dip was a warm, spicy appetizer made by combining canned chili with shredded cheese and heating briefly until melted and bubbly. This 10-minute recipe was perfect for parties, game days, or casual get-togethers, delivering a satisfying mix of smoky, cheesy, and spicy flavors. The dip was often served with tortilla chips or crackers, making it easy to share and enjoy in a communal setting. Its simplicity and speed reflected mid-century America's love for convenience foods that could be whipped up without much fuss. Using canned chili ensured the dip was budget-friendly and accessible to many households. Although chili cheese dip remains popular today, the quick homemade versions of the 1960s had a distinctive charm rooted in combining pantry staples into crowd-pleasing dishes. This recipe embodies the era's knack for hearty, flavorful snacks that made entertaining both easy and delicious. Open-faced hot turkey sandwiches became a post-war staple that brought both speed and comfort to the dinner table. These sandwiches used leftover turkey smothered in rich gravy, served open-faced on a slice of bread, allowing the warm sauce to soak into every bite. The dish reflected the era's practical approach to meals, emphasizing making the most out of leftovers while satisfying hungry families quickly. It was common to see this on weekday dinners when time was short, but a hearty meal was still needed. The gravy often came from pan drippings, adding flavor without requiring extra ingredients, which made this recipe especially valuable during times of rationing or tight budgets. People appreciated that this dish did not require long preparation or fancy skills, making it accessible for cooks of all levels. It also brought a nostalgic connection to holiday meals while fitting the busy pace of post-war life. For many families, it was a quick way to recreate the warmth of a Sunday roast without spending hours in the kitchen. The open-faced turkey sandwich is a perfect example of how simplicity and flavor met in the American home kitchen of the mid-20th century. Egg and potato. Hash turned scraps into a filling supper that could be on the table before the day's stories were finished. Leftover boiled potatoes were diced and tossed into a hot skillet with a bit of butter until their edges crisped to a golden brown. Eggs were cracked directly over the sizzling potatoes, their yolks breaking to coat each bite in a rich sauce as they cooked. A sprinkle of salt, pepper, and maybe a dash of paprika was all it needed. The aroma of frying potatoes and eggs promised satisfaction and thrift, a meal built from yesterday's extras and today's needs. Served straight from the pan, the hash invited everyone to eat family style, forks clinking as the steam rose. It proved that speed never had to sacrifice comfort and that the best dinners often came from making the most of what was already on hand. Number 25. Saltine crackers and milk. This was the snack that said you had almost nothing left, and you were still going to eat something tonight. A handful of saltines crumbled into a bowl, cold milk poured over the top. Some people added a spoonful of sugar. Some added a pinch of cinnamon. Most added nothing at all. In the 1930s, families across the Midwest fed their children this before bed because it was the cheapest thing in the house that still felt like a meal. A box of saltines cost 19 cents in 1940. Milk was 13 cents a quart. For a senior living alone in the 1970s or 1980s, this was not breakfast and not dinner. It was the thing you ate at 9 o'clock at night when the hunger came back and you did not have the energy to stand at the stove again. You sat at the table with that bowl, and the sound of the crackers softening in the milk was the only sound in the house. It was simple. It was enough. And it asked nothing of you except a bowl and a spoon. Number 22. Tomato soup with rice. 1 can of Campbell's condensed tomato, 23 cents at Kroger in 1979. Half a cup of leftover rice from the night before. A tablespoon of butter stirred in at the end. You heated the soup, stirred in the rice, let the rice warm through. 6 minutes. This was a dish that Polish grandmothers in the Hill District had been making for 60 years, long before Campbell's put it on their label. In the old country, the rice was whatever was cheapest that month. Wheat, barley, sometimes potato grated thin. In Pittsburgh, it was Uncle Ben's. One thing few people talk about with this dish is how the rice thickened the soup into something heavier than soup, something closer to porridge, the way peasant food has always found ways to stretch itself into a full meal. He learned it from a woman named Helena Kowalski, who lived 2 doors down on Webster Avenue and brought him a covered bowl the week Rose died. She did not speak much English. She did not need to. The bowl was the sentence. The recipe came with it, pantomimed at his kitchen counter the next afternoon. A can of soup, a scoop of rice, a finger to her lips and a shake of her head, meaning no salt, the can has enough. Then she left. Frank made it that night, and again the next. Number 23. Cottage cheese and canned peaches. This was the meal that women of a certain generation called a salad. It was not a salad. It was a scoop of cottage cheese dropped onto a plate beside a mound of canned peach halves drained from a 79-cent can. That was the entire preparation. No heat, no stirring, no standing. A half cup of cottage cheese delivered 14 grams of protein and was soft enough for seniors with dental problems to eat without struggle. The peaches added sweetness and vitamin C. Hospital cafeterias served this exact combination on trays to patients recovering from surgery in the 1960s and 1970s because it required no chewing and no digestion effort. For a senior living alone, it was the meal you made when you did not feel like eating, but knew you had to. It asked nothing of you. It just sat there on the plate, waiting. Weight Watchers put cottage cheese and fruit on its approved list in 1963, and an entire generation of American women never stopped eating it. Tomato gravy started in the bacon grease left from breakfast. A spoon of flour stirred in until the roux turned pale gold, then a quart of home-canned tomatoes dumped in and mashed down with a fork. The whole thing thickened in the time it took to split the biscuits. It wasn't a sauce. It was a gravy, and there's a difference any mountain cook would insist on, because a sauce is something fancy, and a gravy is what you make when supper has to come from the shelf. Families across Kentucky and West Virginia kept canned tomatoes year-round for this dish, putting up 40 or 50 quarts each August so that winter suppers had something red and hot to pour over bread. The trick was the roux. You couldn't rush it, and the women who made this knew the exact moment the flour changed from raw to ready just by the way the skillet smelled. You poured it over biscuits that were already cold, and the gravy brought them back to life. The last jar of tomatoes in February had a different weight to it, and she always said so. Potato soup with an egg dropped in was the kind of meal that doesn't show up in cookbooks because nobody thought it was worth writing down. You peeled 2 or 3 potatoes, cut them small, boiled them in salted water until soft, then cracked an egg straight into the pot and stirred until it shredded into ribbons through the broth. A little pepper, maybe a slice of cheese melted on top if there was cheese. The Most for Your Money cookbook, published in 1938, included versions of this kind of bare-bones soup, meals designed for families counting every cent. The whole thing took about 10 minutes and dirtied 1 pot. It fed 1 person completely. It was warm and thick enough to feel real. No one served this at a dinner party or brought it to a church social. This was what you made at the end of the month, alone, standing at the stove in a kitchen where the only sound was the water coming to a boil. Peanut butter and honey biscuit was a protein-packed breakfast that appeared on Southern tables once peanut butter became widely available in the early 20th century. The combination seemed simple enough. Creamy peanut butter spread on a warm split biscuit with local honey drizzled over top. But the flavors worked together in ways that transcended their humble origins. The peanut butter's richness was cut by honey's floral sweetness, while the tender biscuit provided the perfect neutral base. This sandwich delivered sustained energy that lasted through long mornings of farm work or school lessons. Families kept jars of peanut butter in pantries alongside honey from local beekeepers, 2 affordable ingredients that together created something genuinely satisfying. Children especially loved this combination, the sweetness making breakfast feel like a treat while the protein kept hunger away until noon. The sandwich could be assembled in under a minute, perfect for busy mornings when time was precious. Buttered peas with pearl onions was the elegant side dish that appeared on countless Christmas tables despite taking barely 5 minutes to prepare from start to finish. Grandmothers kept bags of frozen peas and jars of pearl onions in their pantries specifically for holiday meals, knowing this combination looked fancy enough for company. The preparation was simple. Heat the peas according to package directions, drain the pearl onions and warm them through. Then toss everything together with a generous pat of butter and a sprinkle of salt. The butter melted into a glossy coating that made the bright green peas glisten alongside the pale, sweet onions. Some grandmothers added a pinch of sugar to enhance the natural sweetness, while others finished with a dusting of white pepper for subtle warmth. The dish could sit in a warm oven while other foods finished cooking. Children who normally avoided vegetables often accepted this combination because the buttery sweetness made it feel like a treat. Instant mashed potatoes with gravy from a packet provided the comfort of homemade mashed potatoes without the peeling, boiling, and mashing that tired arms could no longer manage. The flakes were stirred into boiling water with butter and milk, transforming in seconds into something surprisingly close to the real thing that grandmothers had labored over for hours. Packet gravy was mixed separately, whisked into hot water until smooth and poured generously over the fluffy white mound. The combination was warm, filling, and deeply comforting, hitting all the satisfaction notes of a proper dinner without requiring more than 10 minutes of standing at the stove. Some seniors added a fried egg on top or stirred frozen peas into the potatoes for color and added nutrition. Instant mashed potatoes with gravy represented the modern convenience that allowed seniors to enjoy beloved comfort food even when energy and mobility had diminished with the passing years. Pickled beet and apple sandwiches turned the picnic table into a canvas of vivid colors and flavors. Thin slices of sturdy rye bread were buttered lightly to prevent sogginess, then layered with ruby red pickled beets, whose tangy brine offered a burst of earthy sweetness. Tart apple rounds cut paper thin provided a crisp contrast, while a sprinkle of black pepper added gentle heat. When pressed together, these simple ingredients created a sandwich that was bright, juicy, and slightly unexpected. Church members who valued frugality loved this recipe because it made use of home-canned beets from last year's harvest and fresh apples from backyard trees. The striking pink juice often soaked into the bread, leaving a beautiful marbled pattern that children found fascinating, even if they approached the bold flavors with caution. Adults appreciated the balance of sweet and sour, along with the satisfying crunch that stood out amid the richer meats and casseroles. Served cool from wax paper packets, these sandwiches refreshed tired singers and hungry helpers after hours of setting up tables in the summer sun, and offered a reminder that a few honest ingredients can create something truly memorable. Ham and pineapple foldovers were the decade's love letter to sweet and savory living. Thin slices of ham were topped with pineapple rings, brushed with mustard, and broiled on bread or biscuit halves until the edges crisped. The result was warm, tangy, and quick, a meal fit for both lunch and company. The Joy of Cooking listed it as a 10-minute sandwich, perfect for unexpected guests or late-night suppers. It was food that wore a smile, bright, colorful, unapologetically mid-century. The pineapple's sweetness met the salty ham in perfect balance, every bite delivering nostalgia in flavor form. These sandwiches sat proudly on holiday tables and weekday trays alike, their simplicity making them timeless. A sprinkle of grated cheese on top made them even better, melting into golden bubbles. It was fast food before the term existed, homemade and proud. Each foldover told the story of an era that loved flair without the wait. Divinity Fudge was once the crown jewel of Christmas candy plates, whipped into snowy peaks that melted on tongues within minutes. Grandmothers heated corn syrup and sugar to softball stage while egg whites stiffened, then combined both into glossy clouds flavored with vanilla and studded with pecans. The mixture was dropped by spoonfuls onto waxed paper, forming irregular peaks that hardened quickly. Within 10 minutes, the candy transformed into sweet, airy confections that dissolved in your mouth. During the 1950s, Divinity appeared at every church social, made by women who understood impressive didn't require hours. The recipe demanded attention to weather. Humid days spelled disaster. But on crisp December afternoons, Divinity came together like magic. Children watched as glossy mixture transformed from liquid to solid. What made Divinity remarkable was how something delicate and beautiful emerged from rapid preparation, proving Christmas elegance could happen in moments. Banana and sour cream salad might sound unusual today, but in the middle of the 20th century, it was a prized quick dish that often doubled as dessert. Cookbooks called for nothing more than slicing ripe bananas, layering them neatly on a plate, covering them with sour cream, and sprinkling the top with a dusting of sugar. In less than 10 minutes, you had a salad that was creamy, tangy, and sweet all at once. Housewives appreciated how it used just 3 ingredients, yet looked elegant enough for luncheons or church gatherings. Children enjoyed the sweetness, while adults saw it as a lighter alternative to heavier pies or cakes. What made it endure was how easy it was to scale, A single banana could serve one person, or several could fill a platter. It was also one of those recipes that made use of fruit before it spoiled, which was essential in thrifty kitchens. Cheese and pineapple skewers were a cheerful, bite-sized appetizer that embodied the playful spirit of 1960s entertaining. Cubes of sharp cheddar cheese alternated with sweet pineapple chunks threaded onto toothpicks or cocktail sticks, creating an attractive and easy-to-eat party snack. The contrasting flavors of salty, savory cheese with juicy tropical pineapple made for a pleasing combination that delighted guests at cocktail parties, potlucks, and family gatherings. These skewers required no cooking and minimal preparation, allowing hosts to quickly assemble a tasty and visually appealing dish. This simple recipe reflected the era's fondness for finger foods that combined convenience with a touch of sophistication. Though the popularity of pineapple in savory dishes has waned, cheese and pineapple skewers remain a nostalgic symbol of mid-century Americana and its inventive yet accessible approach to casual entertaining. Sloppy Joe sliders captured the spirit of casual mid-century American dining with a miniature take on the iconic Sloppy Joe sandwich. These small-sized versions used seasoned ground beef cooked in a tangy tomato-based sauce, spooned onto mini buns or rolls. The sliders maintained all the messy, flavorful charm of the original dish while offering a bite-sized option suitable for parties or quick meals. Sloppy Joe sliders reflected the era's growing interest in convenience foods and finger foods that were easy to serve and share. They became popular in homes where families sought fun, informal dining experiences without spending hours preparing food. The recipe was praised for using inexpensive ingredients and stretching ground meat across multiple servings, making it budget-conscious. Its presence at gatherings and potlucks highlighted a sense of community and simple enjoyment. The sliders also represented a culinary evolution where traditional meals adapted to smaller, snack-friendly formats, showcasing mid-century creativity in the kitchen. Country ham and red-eye gravy brought a bold, salty kick to the end of a long day, drawing on traditions that went back generations. Thin slices of country ham hit a hot skillet and sizzled until their edges crisped and their smoky scent filled the kitchen. Once the meat was removed, strong black coffee was poured into the pan to deglaze the savory bits, blending with a splash of water and a touch of butter to create the dark, rich gravy that gave the dish its name. The result was a sauce both bitter and savory, perfect for spooning over the ham or soaking into warm biscuits. In less than 15 minutes, the table held a meal that tasted slow, cooked, and soulful. Working families appreciated the speed while still honoring a Southern classic, and the sharp aroma of coffee and ham became a sign that dinner was ready. Each bite balanced salt, smoke, and a subtle bitterness, a reminder of farmhouse suppers where nothing was wasted and flavor came from skill and tradition rather than expensive ingredients. Number 21. Peanut butter crackers. This was the snack that lived in every kitchen drawer, every glove compartment, every bedside table in America for decades. 2 saltine crackers with peanut butter spread between them. A jar of peanut butter cost 59 cents in 1971. A box of crackers cost less than a quarter. Together, they provided protein, fat, and enough substance to hold a person through the gap between lunch and dinner. Doris Novak, the widow in Scranton with the cracker tin, made these every afternoon at 3 o'clock. She kept the peanut butter in the cabinet directly above the tin so she never had to reach or bend or search. Everything was within arm's length. That mattered when your knees hurt and your balance was not what it used to be. She made 4 crackers, 2 sandwiches, and ate them with a glass of water at the kitchen table. Her daughter found the routine unchanged 9 years later. Same tin, same jar, same chair. The simplest snack in America, and it kept a woman anchored to her kitchen when the rest of her life had come undone. Number 25. Creamed chipped beef on toast. Every Army cook in America knew this dish by heart, long before Frank Delmonico learned it from his father-in-law in 1947. The 1910 Manual for Army Cooks printed the recipe in the back. Soldiers called it SOS. Civilians called it supper. A small jar of Armour dried beef cost about 70 cents at the A&P in 1979. Butter, flour, milk, pepper. Frank melted 2 tablespoons of butter in the Farberware pan, sprinkled in the flour to make a roux, poured the milk in slow while the wooden spoon never stopped moving. The dried beef went in last, torn by hand. 8 minutes from cold stove to plated. He ate it over 2 slices of Mancini's bread, standing at the counter. Here is what most people miss about this dish. It was not the chipped beef that mattered. It was the roux. A man who could make a roux at 74 still had control over something in his kitchen. A roux was a small sovereignty. You did not need a chair for a 10-minute meal. You needed a plate and enough light to see the watch. But the roux was the proof you still knew what you were doing. Frank's father-in-law had told him that in 1947, standing at a different stove, and Frank had not forgotten it. Number 20. Canned chili over crackers. A can of Hormel chili cost $1.79. A sleeve of saltine crackers cost $1.29 and lasted a month. You opened the can, heated it in a bowl in the microwave for 90 seconds, and crumbled crackers on top. That was dinner. The chili had 15 grams of protein per can. The crackers gave it crunch and made the portion feel bigger than it was. Truck stops across Oklahoma and Texas sold this combination for $2.99 in the 1980s. Retired truckers who missed the road kept eating it at home because the taste was the same and the price was right. For a senior with limited mobility, the microwave was the only tool required. No stove, no flame, no standing. You could make this sitting in a kitchen chair. Hormel introduced its canned chili in 1935, marketing it as a convenience food for busy families. By the 1970s, the company was selling 50 million cans a year. Cushaw was a hillbilly squash that most of the country never heard of. A large, crook-necked, cream and green-striped gourd that grew heavy on the vine in Appalachian gardens from Virginia down through Georgia, one of the few crops robust enough to thrive in Rocky Mountain soil. Its roots went deeper than European settlement. The Cherokee had been cultivating Cushaw for centuries before Scots-Irish settlers arrived, and those settlers learned to grow it from the people who already knew, the same way they learned corn and beans. Sliced thin and laid into a hot skillet with butter and a sprinkle of brown sugar, it cooked fast, the sugar caramelizing at the edges, the flesh going soft and sweet and slightly stringy in a way that butternut or acorn squash never managed. Appalachian food writer Ronnie Lundy, in her James Beard award-winning cookbook Victuals, described Cushaw as tied to mountain memory in a way that nutritional language alone cannot hold. The Foxfire Fund in Mountain City, Georgia, still works to preserve heirloom crops like Cushaw, but the women who knew the exact moment to pull it from the pan are mostly gone. Beans and rice fed more American families through more hard decades than almost any other single dish, and in New Orleans it was never a sign of poverty. It was Monday. Red beans simmered with a ham bone while the laundry boiled in the yard, and by evening the pot was thick and smoky and ready to pour over a mound of white rice. Francis Moore Lappé confirmed in Diet for a Small Planet in 1971 what poor families had always known by instinct. Rice and beans together form a complete protein, the same as meat. The ingredients cost pennies. The leftovers kept for days. One pot, one burner, enough for a week of solitary suppers reheated in a kitchen where the table only needs one placemat now. For the seniors who still make a pot on Monday the way their mothers did, the dish carries more than nutrition. It carries the sound of a house that used to be full. Cream cheese and jelly sandwich was a Depression-era creation that brought a touch of sweetness to struggling families. Cream cheese, once a luxury, became more affordable as dairy production increased, and spreading it on bread with homemade jelly created something that felt almost fancy. The tangy richness of the cheese balanced the fruit's sweetness perfectly, while soft bread held everything together for easy eating. Children adored this combination, the creamy texture and sweet flavor making breakfast feel like dessert. Mothers made it quickly on rushed mornings, knowing their children would eat it without complaint. The jelly was often homemade from berries picked in summer, preserved in jars that lined pantry shelves through winter. This sandwich represented ingenuity and the determination to make children happy even during hard times. The combination endures today because it genuinely works. the flavors complementing each other in ways that satisfy both young and old palates alike. Deviled eggs sat on special plates with oval indentations, their swirled yolk filling piped into perfect rosettes that grandmothers could prepare in the quiet moments before guests arrived. Hard-boiled eggs were halved, their yolks scooped out and mashed with mayonnaise, mustard, a splash of vinegar, and seasonings until smooth and creamy. The mixture was spooned or piped back into the whites, then finished with a sprinkle of paprika that added color and subtle smokiness to each bite. Some grandmothers added pickle relish for tang. Others incorporated a dash of hot sauce for warmth, but all understood that the filling needed to be seasoned assertively to compensate for the bland whites. Deviled eggs disappeared faster than almost any other appetizer on holiday tables, their rich creaminess and portable size making them impossible to resist. The eggs could be prepared hours ahead and refrigerated, though the paprika dusting was always added just before serving. Poached eggs on toast offered elegance without effort, providing protein in its gentlest form for seniors with sensitive digestion or diminished appetites. The technique required only simmering water, a splash of vinegar to help the whites set, and careful timing. The egg was cracked into gently bubbling water and left undisturbed for 3 to 4 minutes until the white turned opaque while the yolk remained liquid gold inside. Lifted with a slotted spoon and placed on buttered toast, the poached egg became something almost restaurant-worthy. When the yolk was broken, it flowed across the toast like sauce, making each bite rich and satisfying. This was food that felt refined despite its humble ingredients, the kind of meal seniors remembered from diners and lunch counters of their younger years. Poached eggs on toast proved that eating alone did not mean eating carelessly, that simple food prepared with attention could still feel like proper dining. Coffee jelly. Sunday delivered a grown-up treat for those who wanted a gentle jolt of flavor between hymns and stories. Strong black coffee was brewed early in the morning, then sweetened just enough before gelatin was dissolved into the hot liquid and poured into glass dishes to set. By the time the picnic crowd gathered, the coffee had transformed into a smooth, shimmering jelly that held its shape when scooped. Cubes of the chilled jelly were spooned into tall cups and topped with a splash of cold evaporated milk, which added creamy richness without overwhelming the deep roasted flavor. Some cooks dusted the top with a hint of cocoa powder while others left it pure and simple, allowing the bittersweet coffee to shine. Adults savored each spoonful, slowly enjoying the cool texture on a hot day, while children sometimes traded tastes for slices of cake or pie. The dessert was elegant in its restraint and surprisingly refreshing when eaten under the shade of churchyard trees while gospel music floated through the warm afternoon air. Cottage cheese pancakes were the forgotten fitness favorite of the 1970s. High in protein, light in texture, and ready in minutes. Cottage cheese, eggs, and a spoonful of flour made the batter. A hot pan did the rest. They cooked fast, puffing slightly around the edges, golden on both sides. The joy of cooking promoted them as part of a modern health breakfast, long before protein was a buzzword. Their flavor was mild but rich, tangy from the cheese and soft like soufflé inside. Served with fruit, honey, or jam, they felt both wholesome and indulgent. They became a favorite of busy parents and early risers who wanted real food without the fuss. Each pancake was proof that nourishment could be effortless. The smell of them frying, warm, milky, slightly sweet, could make any morning softer. Today, few remember how simple they were to make, but once, they were the breakfast that promised a better day. Cherry mash candy was a sweet tart miracle that happened in minutes, combining maraschino cherries with peanut butter and chocolate coating. The cherries were drained and chopped fine, then mixed with peanut butter and powdered sugar until stiff enough to form into small mounds. These centers were chilled briefly while chocolate melted, then each piece was dipped and set to harden. Within 10 minutes, dozens of candies sat ready, their bright red centers peeking through dark chocolate shells. During the 1960s, cherry mash appeared at Christmas parties and church bazaars, made by women who appreciated how store-bought elegance emerged from pantry staples. The combination of sweet cherries, creamy peanut butter, and rich chocolate created flavor complexity that seemed impossible from such quick assembly. Children loved the surprise of cherry bursts. What made cherry mash special was how it transformed canned fruit into something that looked and tasted professionally made. Shrimp wiggle was the kind of dish that perfectly captured the spirit of mid-century convenience cooking, and it was as charmingly simple as it sounds. Housewives looking to put something quick and satisfying on the table would open a can of shrimp, another can of peas, and stir both into a quick white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk. Once thickened, the whole mixture would be spooned generously over toast, biscuits, or even rice. What made this dish endure in old cookbooks was not only how inexpensive it was, but how much it looked like a true dinner, when in reality it took barely 10 minutes from start to finish. Children loved the creamy sauce and bright peas, while adults felt like they were eating something elegant thanks to the shrimp. The name itself added a little bit of fun, which made this meal a small morale booster in an otherwise frugal kitchen. Sweet potato and raisin mash was a simple yet comforting side dish that brought together the natural sweetness of canned sweet potatoes with juicy raisins in an effortless mash. Popular during the 1960s, this recipe capitalized on pantry staples that required minimal prep but delivered satisfying flavor and texture. The sweet potatoes were mashed until smooth and mixed with plump raisins, creating a balance of creamy and chewy elements. Often served alongside main courses, this dish was prized for its sweetness and convenience, making it a common choice for busy weeknight dinners or holiday meals. Its quick preparation time fit well into the 10-minute recipe trend, offering families a way to add variety and warmth to the table without complex cooking techniques. While modern variations of sweet potato dishes tend to be more elaborate, the straightforward sweet potato and raisin mash stands as a nostalgic reminder of the resourceful, flavorful meals that defined 1960s American kitchens. Baked potato skins with bacon bits provided a clever way to repurpose leftovers into a quick and savory snack during the 1960s. These potato skins used the hollowed-out shells of baked potatoes filled with crispy bacon pieces, cheese, and sometimes onions or herbs. The dish was easy to prepare and offered a flavorful filling option that minimized food waste. By using potato scraps and leftover bacon, home cooks could create a satisfying appetizer or side without requiring extra ingredients. This recipe fit perfectly into the era's growing trend of comfort foods that were both economical and tasty. Baked potato skins gained popularity for their ability to transform simple leftovers into something special, showcasing resourcefulness in the kitchen. The combination of crispy, salty bacon and creamy cheese made each bite indulgent yet approachable. This dish remains a nostalgic reminder of how families made the most out of every ingredient during mid-century America. Number 23. Bread and butter with sugar. Before cinnamon toast had a name, there was this: a slice of white bread spread thick with butter and covered in granulated sugar. Some families called it a sugar sandwich when they folded it in half. Others called it a piece. In the rural South and through the Appalachian hollows, mothers handed this to children and said, "Go play." The butter held the sugar in place. The bread was soft enough to eat without teeth. A widow in Harlan County, Kentucky, ate this every afternoon for years because it was the only sweet thing she could afford. She kept a small jar of sugar next to the bread box and a stick of margarine on the counter. 3 ingredients. No preparation beyond spreading and sprinkling. Less than 5 cents per serving even in the 1980s. Nutritionists would call it empty fuel. The woman who ate it every afternoon called it the only good thing in her day. Number 23. Hamburger steak with onion gravy. A quarter pound of ground chuck at 99 cents a pound. 1 yellow onion. A splash of beef broth from a bouillon cube. Frank shaped the patty with his bare hands, pressed his thumb into the middle so it would not dome up on the electric coil, and laid it in the cold pan. The trick on a Kenmore was to start cold. 7 minutes total. The onions went in after the patty came out. You scraped the brown bits off the bottom with the bouillon water and let it reduce while you buttered a slice of bread. That was the gravy. Southern grandmothers served this over mashed potatoes on Sundays. A retired machinist ate it over the bread, standing up, pocket watch on the counter. Same dish, different table. Number 11, pimento cheese on bread. In the South, they called pimento cheese the caviar of the poor. A tub of it cost $3.49 at the grocery store and lasted a week of sandwiches. You spread it on white bread and ate. No heat, no preparation, no skill. The creaminess of the cheese and the sweetness of the pimentos made it taste richer than it was. Southern grandmothers made their own from scratch with sharp cheddar, mayonnaise, and a jar of diced pimentos, but the store-bought version worked the same for someone eating alone with no reason to fuss. Augusta, Georgia hosted a pimento cheese festival every spring. Funeral homes across the Carolinas served pimento cheese sandwiches at every reception. The spread was woven into the fabric of Southern life from birth to death. The recipe first appeared in Good Housekeeping in 1908, and it spread through the South the way most recipes did in that era, hand to hand, neighbor to neighbor, through church cookbooks and family reunions. By the 1940s, nearly every household below the Mason-Dixon line had their own version. Fatback had no glamour. It was the part of the hog nobody else wanted. Pure white fat salted and stored in a crock. But in Appalachian kitchens from the 1930s through the 1960s, it was the engine of every meal. You sliced it thin, laid it in a cold skillet, and let it render slow. By the time the slices went brown and rigid at the edges, the pan was full of clear golden fat worth more than the meat itself. The crackling slices got eaten, salty, crunchy, intensely porky, but the drippings went into a jar by the stove that was never empty if the family was doing all right. A half-pound of fatback cost a few cents at the company store in coal towns across West Virginia and eastern Kentucky, and it seasoned every pot of beans, every skillet of greens, every pan of cornbread for a month. You didn't measure. You poured until the color looked right, and if you had to ask what that meant, you hadn't spent enough time watching. The jar by the stove was the first thing to disappear when the next generation moved to town. Stewed tomatoes on toast could be on the table before the kitchen even warmed up. You opened a can, poured the tomatoes into a saucepan with a knob of butter and a pinch of sugar to cut the acid, heated them until they bubbled, then spooned the whole thing over a piece of toast and let the bread soak it up. In Appalachian and Midwestern homes through the 1930s and 40s, this was a complete meal. Not a side, not a starter, but supper. Some added torn pieces of bread directly into the pot and stirred until everything became a thick, sweet, tangy mush that you ate with a spoon. The entire process took maybe 4 minutes from can to plate. It cost almost nothing. It filled you up enough to sleep. And for a woman eating alone in a kitchen that once fed a household, there was something honest about it. No pretense, no performance, just a hot bowl of something red and soft and familiar. Fried salt pork sandwich was pure survival food that sustained families when other meat wasn't available or affordable. Salt pork, that heavily cured slab of pork belly preserved in brine, was sliced thin and fried until the fat rendered and the edges turned crispy and golden. The intense saltiness meant a little went far, with just a few slices providing enough flavor and fat to make a satisfying breakfast. Placed between slices of homemade bread or tucked into a biscuit, the salt pork delivered immediate energy and lasting fullness. Families kept barrels of salt pork in cellars and smokehouses, insurance against lean times when fresh meat wasn't possible. The frying process transformed the preserved meat, making it tender inside while developing a crust that crackled between teeth. This sandwich taught important lessons about preservation and resourcefulness. The salt pork might seem too intense for modern palates, but for generations of rural families, it represented security and the comfort of knowing food was always available. Creamed pearl onions brought old-world elegance to American Christmas tables through a preparation so simple it bordered on effortless yet tasted utterly luxurious. Grandmothers relied on jars of pre-peeled pearl onions that eliminated the tedious work of blanching and skinning dozens of tiny bulbs by hand. The onions were drained and warmed in a quick cream sauce made from butter, flour, and milk whisked together until smooth and thickened. a pinch of nutmeg, the secret ingredient that distinguished good creamed onions from ordinary, added warmth without announcing its presence. The finished dish was silky and mild, the sweet onions suspended in sauce that coated each one in creamy richness. Children who found raw onions too sharp often discovered they loved these gentle, butter-soft morsels swimming in their mild sauce. Creamed pearl onions represented the quiet sophistication of mid-century holiday cooking, where simplicity and convenience met elegance on every table. Soft-boiled eggs with toast soldiers turned a simple egg into an interactive meal that brought small pleasure to solitary dining. Seniors who grew up with this British-influenced tradition continued preparing it well into later years, finding comfort in the familiar ritual. The egg was lowered gently into boiling water and cooked for exactly 3 to 4 minutes, producing set white and gloriously runny yolk. Meanwhile, toast was prepared and cut into narrow strips called soldiers, ready for dipping. The egg sat in a small cup, its top carefully removed to reveal golden liquid within. Each toast soldier was dipped into the yolk, emerging coated in rich goodness that made plain bread taste extraordinary. The meal cost almost nothing yet felt ceremonial, requiring attention that gave structure to evenings that might otherwise blur together. For seniors eating alone, the process of dipping and eating provided small entertainment alongside nourishment. Ginger ale, ice cream float pie turned a favorite soda shop treat into a picnic-ready dessert. A graham cracker crust was pressed firmly into a pie pan and chilled while vanilla ice cream softened slightly on the counter. The ice cream was then mixed with bubbly ginger ale until smooth and lightly frothy, creating a creamy filling with a gentle spice and fizz. This mixture was poured into the crust and left to firm in the icebox until ready to serve. Just before cutting, a thin layer of whipped cream was spread across the top and sprinkled with crushed ginger snaps for extra crunch. Each slice tasted like an old-fashioned float, cool and sweet with a hint of ginger warmth. Because it required no baking and could be prepared hours ahead, it became a go-to dessert for hot summer gatherings. Children loved the effervescent flavor, while adults appreciated the nostalgic nod to soda fountain days. It captured the playful side of church picnics, where families mingled under the trees and every dish held a touch of celebration. Egg nests were breakfast theater in 10 minutes flat. Egg whites were whipped into glossy clouds, shaped into little nests, and baked just long enough to firm before the yolks were added back in. The result was a dish that looked far fancier than it was, light, airy, and golden at the center. The joy of cooking described it as a dainty breakfast, perfect for brunches or special mornings. Housewives loved it because it turned a single egg into something spectacular. The contrast between the soft yolk and crisp-edged white made every bite feel delicate. Served with buttered toast or a slice of ham, it looked like something straight from a hotel breakfast tray. Children watched in awe as the nests puffed up in the oven. It was fast, pretty, and impossibly charming, the kind of forgotten magic that made morning feel like an occasion. Tiger butter combined white and dark chocolate in swirled patterns that looked like exotic candy but came together in under 10 minutes with just melting and stirring. White chocolate melted smooth while peanut butter stirred in. Then this mixture poured onto pans and semi-sweet chocolate drizzled over top. A knife pulled through both layers created marbled swirls that looked professional. The result was stunning, golden brown tiger stripes against creamy white, each piece unique in its pattern. During the 1960s, tiger butter impressed at parties and made memorable gifts. The flavor combination was perfect: sweet white chocolate, nutty peanut butter, and rich dark chocolate creating layers of taste in every bite. Children marveled at the patterns, trying to guess which pieces had the best swirls. What made tiger butter special was how something so beautiful emerged from simple technique, proving that elegance came from creativity, not complexity. Mock egg lemon soup was a Depression-era lifesaver that made its way into many family recipe cards and church cookbooks. The premise was simple. Instead of long-simmered chicken soup, you heated up a quick broth, whisked in eggs, and added a squeeze of lemon for brightness. The hot broth would cook the eggs almost instantly, creating silky strands that thickened the liquid without any flour or cream. In less than 10 minutes, you had a dish that tasted like comfort but cost next to nothing. Families appreciated the warm, tangy flavor on cold days, and since both eggs and lemons could stretch across several meals, this soup quickly became a favorite. Its Greek inspiration was often mentioned, but the thrifty American version was much lighter and faster. You could have a pot on the table in the time it took to set out the bowls, making it one of those resourceful recipes that never really went away. Grape and cheese salad was a sweet and savory cold dish that combined juicy, fresh grapes with cubes of sharp cheddar cheese and a touch of mayonnaise for added creaminess. This salad was a common favorite at family gatherings, potlucks, and holiday meals throughout the 1960s, appreciated for its unique blend of contrasting flavors and simple, quick assembly. The natural sweetness of the grapes perfectly balanced the tangy, robust flavor of the cheddar cheese, while the mayonnaise provided a smooth texture that brought all the elements together. Often served chilled on a bed of crisp lettuce or alongside other cold dishes, this recipe exemplified the era's fondness for pairing sweet fruits with savory ingredients in cold salads and appetizers. While it may seem unusual to modern tastes, grape and cheese salad remains a nostalgic symbol of inventive and approachable mid-century American cooking. It highlights the creativity and resourcefulness of home cooks who sought to create tasty dishes that were both convenient and visually appealing, capturing the comforting spirit of quick recipes from the 1960s. Mini cornbread muffins were a staple in many American kitchens, prized for their quick baking time and delightful corn flavor. These small individual muffins were made from cornmeal batter, often enriched with buttermilk, eggs, and a touch of sugar or honey. The muffins were perfect for accompanying soups, stews, or barbecue, providing a slightly sweet and crumbly side that balanced savory dishes. Their convenient size made them ideal for portion control and easy serving at family meals or gatherings. Mid-century home cooks valued mini cornbread muffins for their simplicity and the comforting warmth they brought to the table. The recipe's popularity also reflected a Southern culinary influence that spread across the country during this period. Mini cornbread muffins continue to evoke fond memories of home-cooked meals and traditional American flavors. That's 60 recipes from the old cookbooks, and every single one of them comes together in 10 minutes or less. Tell us down in the comments, which recipe did your family swear by back in the day, and do you still pull it out today? We love reading your stories. Enjoyed this trip through the old cookbooks? Go ahead and subscribe so you're here when the next one drops. We'll be heading back in again real soon with another round of recipes that used to fill kitchens all across America. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.